Welcome back to today's counter. My name is Sophia Ali and I'm joined in the studio with my guest for today, Irene Otieno, the chairperson of National Taxpayers Association, who's here to demystify to us the Nairobi County allocations and how that money is being spent. Welcome, Irene, to our studios. So over 40 billion shillings is allocated. This is due to this the report by the Nairobi County government in 2017-2018. They were allocated 39.9 billion. This is estimated at 40 billion shillings per year. What do they do with this money?
Sophie, rightly put, we know that Nairobi being the capital city of Kenya,
yes,
it obviously collects a lot of on-source revenue, fast to speak, and also has more budgetary allocations to this county. And in terms of the functions, as you've mentioned, looking at the constitution, it clearly stipulates the functions that each county should undertake. Primary healthcare is a function of the county, the ECDs, garbage collection, some types of roads and grades of road are functions that are constitutionally those of counties. So I'd say that Schedule 4 of the Constitution of Kenya guides how the county allocates and prioritizes, and not to forget that as a county and the residents of this county, through the county integrated development plans, then we already say the priorities of a Nairobi or whatever is identified in what we call the CIDP, and further broken down into annual development plans for each year. So that is where you'd find where they take a bulk of their allocations. As you've said, in 17-18, it was around 35 billion. So those would be the priorities that then go to be utilized by the way of the budget and hopefully translate into services for the residents of Nairobi.
Okay. Just the other day, the Nairobi governor was arrested for embezzling more than 300 million shillings. And as we can see of late, even with the rains, the way the state of the roads in this country, what do you have to say about that?
Generally, first, even before I narrow down to Nairobi County, we have seen Samburu governor going to court before. We have seen Waititu. So it seems to be a trend that the Anti-Corruption Authority, together with the Office of the Auditor General, DCI, are really coming after the county CEOs. And for me, as a representative of the Taxpayers Association, I think it's a timely move.
Yeah.
What I could say to the investigative agencies and even to the residents and citizens of Kenya is let us wait for the court process, the full court process, and see the details that the DCI and the DPP have already put in the charge sheet that they've already mentioned. So as a taxpayer, I'd say that we must respect taxes of Kenyans. Remember that the Kenya Revenue Authority recently has been all over the place saying that there is insufficient revenue. They have huge revenue targets. Our budget runs into the trillions. So this is your money and my money. So the moment that we feel that this money is being wasted, we should all actually congratulate our investigative agencies for going after taxes, our taxpayers' money. Because what we are calling for is prudence in the utilization of this money. And Sophie, just to put it in context, when we are speaking around 357 million,
yes,
look at it with what the minimum wage in Kenya is. It's around 13,000,
yes,
and some hundreds on top of it per individual.
Yes.
So look at how many you would basically work for your life and your children's life before you get what is, I'd say, quote unquote, right now misappropriated, as we wait for the details from the investigative agencies. So I think we must treat it with that seriousness. Know that this 357 million is missed education opportunities for children in Kenya.
Yes.
Is missed healthcare for women. So it's a lot of things and should just not be reduced to 357. So mine is to say that not just Sonko, but any other at national or county, whether it's a CS, because I think we're overplaying the issue of Sonko, but we have seen it with the CS Treasury, Rotich, who is now out of office as we investigate. So we should not look at individuals, but the principle we are saying is public funds must be treated with the respect that is due to those taxes.
Yes, we have seen so many things that are going wrong, especially even the whole of this country. These governors has been given the responsibilities to man their counties and make sure that all the citizens are getting their due services that they need to be given. What is happening? Where are some of this money going to?
Sophie, indeed we've said it's the CEOs of the counties being the governors who we have elected and said run these counties for us, and run it not in a sense to just receive money from the national level, but also generate and make these counties self-sustaining, so to speak, not wait for the equitable share from the government. And as we look at it also, Sophie, you look at the finance acts that have been coming from these counties. I would say they are finance acts that the taxpayers are really going into our pockets to, you know, take the last penny from us, and they should be providing services. But in this county where we sit right now, with all of our leadership, look at, you have the MCAs, you have women reps, we have so many leaders.
Yes.
But if you look, and I've just been checking on social media, Kasarani was up in arms, the road is not working. So the county is not really providing the services. But I hesitate to give all the burden to the CEO of the county because we have elected MCAs.
Yes.
So I would say that even before the DCI came in, the Auditor General has been bringing out reports for Nairobi County. And the same issues around flaws in procurement, conflict of interest, these are things that the previous Auditor General has been highlighting. But what has the Assembly done? The Assembly has not called out these issues. So the Assembly has also abdicated its duty. And when you leave that free will, obviously the CEOs will see that there's a lacuna which they'll seek to fill, and, you know, kickbacks, contracts to whoever you want. So I view that the assemblies must take their rightful place if counties are to work. Because remember, Sophie, we have 47 counties. The DCI cannot be able to look at all procurement. So this is just a tip of the iceberg. But having looked at 47, as an institution, having looked at 47 executive and assembly reports together with the national level audit report, you would see that it's a small fraction. So where does this leave us? It then leaves us with the fact that our assemblies must do their work, and the DCI and the SEC just come as an additional layer. They are administrative things that we ought to have addressed. How many counties have what we call audit committees? And this is something that the Auditor General has said, because procurement is where our money as taxes is being misappropriated. So really my call is that the Council of Governors need to come and add their voice in this narrative, that we do not really want to see the CEOs of our counties being dragged to court year after year over issues that ought to have been solved at the county level, either through the assembly, either we have the controller of budget saying some of these withdrawals from the county revenue fund should not happen. So this should actually be the last resort, because it's not a sustainable approach, so to speak.
Okay, so we have seen that they clearly have their lines cut out for them. What is my responsibility as a Kenyan? What can I do in order to curb some of these menaces? Because we already know that these are some of the things that they need to provide for us. So what is my responsibility? How do I come in to make sure that I raise some of these concerns?
Sophie, I think that's the type of question that really makes me happy. When the taxpayer wants to rise and find out, what can I do? And the question is not what can EACC do, what does Haji have to do? Because Haji is one person, but I think the KNBS statistics show that we are more than 40 million and above. So what can we do at individual level? My first take, Sophie, is that participate in the budget process, find out. So the budget of Nairobi or whichever county for financial year 2018-2019 is this much. So this is how much goes to health. This is how much goes to another sector. So what are we as citizens? If we are players, say, in the garbage collection sector, have we seen what allocations are there for us? And we monitor who is this contractor. As opposed to demonstrating in Kasarani right now over a road, the Kasarani residents, and particularly the Matatu associations, ought to have known who was given the contract to develop the road. A road that has not even lasted more than 1 year. So who's this contractor? So those are the things that we need to do ourselves and call the government to account. Secondly, Sophie, for me would be, when the moment you're paying your tax, either at county and national level, demand your right. What am I going to get? If I am paying tax in Nairobi County, what business do I have buying water from a private vendor? So that type of voice, just voicing up, Sophie, I think is fundamental. And when we see that our members are not representing us, start asking those critical questions. Your MCA has an office at the ward level. You should make his life unbearable if he does not make your life work. So my take, Sophie, is is to just say that we cannot afford to delegate the issues of oversight to institutions. EACC has human resource constraints. It has budgetary constraints. If you're looking at the judiciary, we saw the National Assembly trying to cut its budget. So when we are saying that we are taking these matters to court with a judiciary that is on half of the budget that they had asked for, these cases are going to take long. What will happen in the interim? Looking, say, at our county right now, if all these things continue to obtain as they're obtaining, we don't know how long Sonko will be out. Whoever fits in will not have that leeway to maneuver. So what is the opportunity cost for all these things? So my take and position really is, Sophie, individuals must take anti-corruption as a personal issue, just the way paying tax is personal. No one pays tax on behalf of any Kenyan. It is a very personal issue. So we must take personal initiative to fight corruption and to ensure that taxes are working for us as the taxpayers of Kenya.
So one question though, what the county or the CEOs of the counties have been crying out for more funding. Could we say that some of these laggings in the county developments, could we peg it to saying that they get less money, or do they need more money to help and deal with these issues?
Sophie, I think personally I've agonized over that issue, but I don't think there's an answer that fits all, because these counties are not at the same place.
Yes.
I give a case of Makueni. I would say anytime give more resources to Makueni, because you see what happens there. You see mothers getting health care, you see agriculture working, milk processing plants, fruit processing plants. So for me to say do not give money to counties would be doing a disservice to Makueni. But on the other hand, I come to a county like Kiambu, I come to a county like now Nairobi
County, where even the president said that you are being overcompensated, you're giving a lot of money, but there is nothing to show for it.
But the president might also tell us we are also giving his national level a lot of money, and nothing is happening at that level. So I think I wouldn't want to associate myself with the president and his national level, because they also have a lot of corruption issues. But my take to the Council of Governors, who generally look at county leadership, is that truthfully, the Constitution has given the counties a lot of functions. So obviously there's a shortfall. In terms of the amounts they're getting, there is less money. But they as counties also must tell us what are they doing with the on-source revenue. As we sit here, Sophie, one of the reasons that has taken Sonko to court is that the automated revenue collection system, apparently, and I still say quote unquote because the matter is still in court, and whatever will happen.
Yes.
But even without the court process, we've been reading the Auditor General's report, and the auditor, Mr. Ouko, already flagged out and said that money that ought to be banked in the on-source revenue is not being banked in Nairobi County. So this means that me and you pay tax in Nairobi, but only a fraction of it gets to the county revenue fund, the other one disappears. So you cannot then come as a county and say that pesa mashinani. Is it pesa mashinani or is it pesa mifukoni mwenu? There's a big difference. So before we start, and I've seen some civil society members saying let us add more money to the counties, but I think that discussion must be balanced and also say, as we demand for more money to the counties, let us equally demand for basic accountability for the people of Kenya.
So what role does the SRC have to play in this, or they have no role in this?
SRC has a critical role because, again, audit reports for Nairobi County and even what Haji has pointed out is that we have a lot of ghost workers in Nairobi County. And just not in Nairobi County, you would see counties that are saying they're paying 300 million to casual laborers. There is no trail of an account number for these casual laborers. There is no M-Pesa account, while Kenya prides itself to be the one with the highest penetration of both banking and the M-Pesa. So why would a county say like Nairobi, which is, most of us have M-Pesa account, who are these people that you're paying 300 million and there is no trace? So obviously SRC must come and streamline guidelines on how we manage our wage bill, because just last week SRC and the national government had a conference where they're saying our wage bill is unsustainable. But our question is, have we really authenticated the integrity of that wage bill? Because most of it there are ghost workers. National level itself, as they tell us to control our wage bill, have gone and added a layer they're calling the administrative secretaries, who are unconstitutional, and an added layer for Kenyans to pay. Look at the same level also, Sophie, as we talk, where the Parliamentary Service Committee has taken SRC to court, where MPs are still demanding 250,000. And we are happy that the court has said, I think next year in March is when they will answer that. So in the interim, we then maintain status quo, where they do not get that additional money. And that, Sophie, is what we are saying. I think as a country, the political class has forgotten that it is taxes that run the system. How can you ask for a house allowance of 250,000 to a Kenyan who has a minimum wage of 13,000? So our concern really is that we are collectively collecting money because KRA has said kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. But at the point of redistribution, it is only a few who get this money. So what is government saying by that? I think even as government is calling for KRA to reach its targets, KRA can never reach those targets unless me and you feel like tax is working for us, and so we can be able to pay it well. So just to go back to your question, I say SRC has a critical role to play in all of this because within the 2010 constitution, Kenyans then say, let us have an SRC because we wanted to regulate how our public and state officers remunerate themselves because it seemed to be a conflict of interest where a parliament would approve a budget and approve an increment in their salaries, not remembering that Kenyan population is 86.3% in the informal sector and only around 16 or 14% in the formal sector. Yet this formal sector is taking more than 50% of our GDP. So that is just really taking the taxpayer for a joke. And that's what then we are saying as taxpayers, we really are behind SRC. We have understood and known and seen that there's a lot of fights, just not from the state officers, but even public servants. When SRC says it wants to review allowances, they are up in arms. So just to reinforce that SRC has a critical role at all counties to ensure that our wage bill is sustainable. Okay,
this topic very sensitive though. The BBI, the reduction of women, nominated women and all this, is this something that is going to boost the use of taxpayers' money?
Sophie, I'm still reading that document, trying to digest and analyze it. But for me, I do not think abolishing the women position is one way of reducing that wage bill or the cost for taxpayers. We must look at it at the lens and see what value addition have these women brought. So I think the conversation should not be just about how much it costs us to have these women and other marginalized groupings within our leadership, but what contribution. Because if their net contribution is more than what we are paying, then I think we can continue to have them. But in my personal view, I have not seen these positions working. So at a personal level, I'd say get rid of some of these positions and just not the women rep. It's across the board. We've been having conversation of why do we have the members of parliament position, we have senators, we have governors. So I think we must look at it holistically, but when we narrow down just to the women, I think that is where emotions run high and we forget to look at, because, oh, you're against women, you're against this grouping. But I think if we as a country must look at it very soberly and say, this is how much we have as a national budget, this is how much we are using to pay these positions. So does it mean that only when you have women in these positions, women matters are going to be discussed? Does it mean only when you have people living with disabilities in this position, will disability rights be mainstreamed? I do not think so. And so that is a conversation that we must have at national, but as currently constituted, I think we must get rid of majority of the representation positions because they've not demonstrated a change in the lifestyle of the taxpayers.
Being a taxpayer, myself personally as Sophie, I feel like there is a repeat of roles. There is roles that are being duplicated both in the government and even in parliament, in so many positions in this country. What is your take on that?
I think, Sophie, to everyone it's very obvious except to the government. I do not know why the government is not seeing what we are all seeing. There's a lot of duplication. Because if there wasn't duplication, you wouldn't have a conversation around one entity saying, you're taking my role. So you'd find the MPs and the senators saying, you're usurping my role. So if your roles were clear-cut, that rivalry would not be there. So already that we are seeing this rivalry is just a testament that there's duplication. At even a ministry level, and what we've mentioned at the administrative secretaries, these are also positions that were being given as a gift, so to speak. But our concern and what we are telling the government is that you cannot gift positions to people and expect that we pay for them at the expense of service delivery. So that duplication, those are the conversations I think that must be in the BBI, conversations that every taxpayer must be concerned about. And we are happy that there are some taxpayers like Okia who's really gone and said, no, this will not work. So indeed there is duplication. And I think as a nation, as we are talking about managing our wage bill, and the resolutions that the Salaries and Remuneration Commission came with from that conference, this is one of those key issues. We must get rid of duplication. At the onset, it might occasion some harm, and there might be a lot of push and shove because no one wants to lose a job. But if we want to have a country that is working even in the future and just not taxing to pay salaries, then these are the hard decisions that a government must make.
Looking at a country like India, they have a population of 1.3 billion, while Kenya, we have 40 million residents population. Looking at also their governorship positions, they have only 43 government positions in India, while in Kenya, we have 47 counties. With a 47 equal of population, which means every 1 million Kenyans have a governor.
Yes.
Is this something that it's really viable in terms of taxpayers' money? Do we need to reduce the county levels? Do we need to go back to those provinces?
For me, when we're talking about the discussion of reducing the leadership, first would be what value addition have these counties provided. So the reason I'd say is not even first the numbers. The numbers obviously is now absurd that you have another country that has more people than yours.
Yes.
Has less. But you with less people have more.
And in fact, less governorship and less privileges, like police escort, like having those privileges that the governors of this country get. The governors, I was doing research, and the governors of those countries, they get less. Actually, you would seemingly not notice them on the road because they have very small and minimal security detail compared to Kenya.
So yes, that comparative analysis already shows that we are on the wrong footing if you look at other countries, like the very good example that we provided of India. But secondly, also, if we at country level look, what value add have the 47 counties provided? I do not see so much value add that is commensurate with the number of governors that we have. Because remember the division of revenue stalemate. So counties were saying, if we do not get our share from national government, then services are going to grind to a halt at county level. So doesn't that then mean that counties are just a baby of the national government? But constitutionally, that was not what we envisioned as a country. We envisioned that there can be on-source revenue from the counties, that the counties can at least be able to give basic services, even as we wait for that national equitable share. So that conversation at that time during that stalemate already points to the fact that our counties are heavily dependent on the national level. So if they're heavily dependent on the national level, then they had rather be fewer without compromising service delivery, because the ideal and the reasoning behind was devolution was that we have services closer to Mwananchi. So if we can reduce these numbers without compromising service delivery to Mwananchi, and I think it's possible, then we must go that direction. And you have also pointed out to the benefits that we give to these elected leaders. Sophie, if you read the circulars from the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, we give our leaders a car grant, we give them mortgages, we give them sitting allowance for work that they ought to do. Health insurance is better than yours and mine because we depend on the NHIF, which has its challenges. So these benefits are too many benefits, and if you want to give those same benefits to a large number, remember the deputy governors took Salaries and Remuneration Commission to court, saying if the MPs or if these other people have a house allowance, we also have a house allowance. So MPs also went to court and said, if you give the deputy governors a house allowance, we also must get a house allowance. So what will me and you say? So if the government gave MPs, deputy governors, we also need a house allowance. We don't have that. Our houses are coming down in Tasia because we live in wherever and under God's mercies. I think that is total discrimination, and these benefits must be realistic to our context, and we do not need to pamper political class to do their work. If what we are providing as the taxpayers is not enough for a public or a state officer, there is the private sector that you can go do your thing and get your remuneration.
Thank you so much, Erin. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. We're going to take a look at some of these things and probably These are some of the talks that we will always be bringing to you here at TV47. Thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Sophia Ali. Thank you for joining us.